Once upon a time, there was a boy named Mage. And you see, Mage was a curious, fun, awesome little boy who was 10 years old. He was well behaved, he was great at school, he didn't cause much trouble for his parents, he was kind in every way and chance he could be. But he did have a knack for getting into trouble, and he also had an interest in magic. Little Mage wanted to learn to be a magician like David Copperfield. He wanted to learn how to do card tricks, he wanted to make people disappear, he wanted to make flowers come out of his hands, he wanted to make his eyes glow strange colors, and eventually he wanted to do things like the magical grates, chop people in half and then have them magically appear back together, have cars levitate, or even make skyscrapers disappear. But he reasoned that since he was only 10 years old, the best he could do right now was learn some card tricks, how to make coins disappear, how to pull coins from behind people's ears, and tricks of that caliber. And so, as you can imagine, Mage was very excited one day when he and his father got to go to the magic shop. They got in the car. The whole way there, he kept thinking about what he was gonna get, what props, what tricks he was gonna learn. He was gonna talk to the owner who was starting to know him quite well. It was gonna be great. But when they got to the magic shop, his spirits sank like a stone to the bottom of the ocean. For the magic shop said, "We're sorry, permanently closed." They walked out and they tried to look in the windows to see what had happened, but there was no explanation. It looked like all the equipment was still inside. The shelves looked neat and orderly, only the shop was empty and the lights were off. Mage felt very, very sad. He was trying his best not to cry, but a couple tears kept coming out. Not just because he didn't get to go to the shop today, but because he loved the owner. And if this magic shop closed down, there wasn't another one in town. Well, his dad got out his phone and started shoogling, which was the search engine in this world. They started shoogling for the nearest magic shop. And they did find a new magic shop one town over. It didn't have any reviews, and it said it had only been open for one day. Mage's dad and Mage both agreed that a bad magic shop was certainly far superior to no magic shop whatsoever. So in the car, they went and they drove. On the drive there, they listened to the song "I'm Not Okay" by My Chemical Romance over and over and over, because that was Mage's daddy's favorite song, and Mage got quite infuriated and was very happy to arrive at the magic shop when they did. Now this magic shop was in the downtown of a very small town called Gilcharge. There was several brick buildings, restaurants, and the magic shop was down an alley lined by two-story brick buildings. As they got closer to the sign that said Tonkin's Magic Emporium, they noticed the sign was over a staircase, and the staircase went down into the basement under one of these beautiful brick buildings. So they walked down the stairs, and Mage noticed the railing was rather loose. The brick and then the concrete down at the bottom of the brick staircase looked worn, as if this building hadn't been taken care of in a long time. Even the outside of the door looked like the paint and stain was fading. The wood looked to be cracked and in some places even rotting. There were even chips in the glass. They opened the door and ding! There was the sound of a bell as they went inside. And Mage's eyes went and almost popped out of his head. There was one shelf that had regular magic tricks, the kind you would see in most magic stores. As I mentioned, card tricks, fake flowers, rabbit from your hat tricks, the type of stuff you might expect. But there, lining 6 or 7 other small aisles, were strange things that Mage wasn't sure he liked, but he was certainly happy he could see. So Mage's father went in to talk to the owner, who was sitting behind the counter, a strange-looking man. He looked very, very old, and his eyes looked so white, Mage wondered if he could even see. He constantly made smacking sounds with his lips, and he was breathing rather heavily all the time. But Mage didn't care much about that, because he was mesmerized and a little horrified by what he saw on the shelves. There were jars that had things inside of them. One looked like it had a little dead mouse in it. Another one looked like it had a brain in it. There was one that had some sort of animal's tail floating in some sort of pink fluid. There were bones, there were strange rocks, there were knives made of wood and iron, Mage would have loved one of these, but he knew his father would never go for getting him a knife because he was far too young. He went to the back of the store, and on the back shelf, at the very end, there were several chests, and one of them had a handwritten label on it that said magic wands. So Mage opened it up, and he looked inside and it seemed to be empty. Well, they don't have many magic wands, he thought to himself. But he decided to stick his hand in and feel around, and he found one last wand, and he pulled it out. It was a piece of wood. It was gnarled, and it had stains all over it. There were chips where it looked like it had been hit with a knife or a small axe. It was curvy, and somehow it felt just right in Mage's hand. As he picked it up and he waved it, it felt light. It felt almost like it was moving on his own. And he reasoned he was probably just imagining this. But as he waved his hand around, he thought he saw the faintest glow. So Mage ran up to his father. "Daddy, Daddy, look, a magic wand. Can I get it? Can I get it?" His dad looked it over and said, "Son, that just looks like a really old stick that has seen wear and tear over its life. Are you sure that's what you want? There's other real tricks here." And Mage said, "Yes, this is what I want. This is what I want." Now the magician behind the counter with his clouded white eyes and his long gray beard was massaging his beard. And he looked at Mage and said, "Oh, you found a magic wand, I see. I didn't know I had any left. Let me see that, boy." And Mage handed it to him. He noticed that the man didn't look at the wand, but he felt it with his hands. He caressed it and he hovered them about it, almost as if he could feel something with his hands. Perhaps a magnetic field, perhaps something else, perhaps he was just putting on a show. You must decide that. However, eventually the shopkeeper said, "Ah, yes, I will give you this wand for $5, but there are no refunds." Mage's dad looked at him and said, "Son, are you sure that you want this?" Mage said, "Yes, Father, I do." Mage's dad handed over $5. The man graciously took them and then said goodbye and disappeared behind a curtain to his back room instantly, almost as if he were afraid Mage and his father might change their mind. Mage's father opened the door out, the bell tinkled and the hinges creaked, and they walked up the decomposing stairs out of the back alley and back to their car. On the drive home, Mage was waving around the wand, and he was definitely seeing some sort of glow. And the strange thing was, now the glow went into his hand. It would glow for a moment and then be gone. It was so fast that he thought perhaps he was just imagining things. He didn't know for sure. Well, they got home and they had a delicious dinner of chicken with scalding hot tamales on it. Mage loved eating hot tamales and jalapenos, just like my boy Alden does. And after that, he went to his room and he slept. The next day, he woke up, did all his normal things, went to school, blah, the boring stuff. And he got home and he decided to take his wand out to the park because it was a gorgeous summer day. The skies were blue, only a few fluffy clouds adorned the sky. So he got to the park and he took a blade of grass in his hand and he cast into it, "Enlargio!" And he imagined like a little beam of that weird light he had seen on his hand going out to the blade of grass and enlarging it. Nothing happened. "Shrinkio!" he said. Nothing happened. "Disappeario!" And then, much to his surprise, he saw a faint glow disappear from his hand, and the grass that he had cast on disappeared. He dropped the wand, he jumped up and kind of freaked out a little bit, because imagine yourself as a child who actually executed magic. I'm sure you may have had the experience of looking at a penny or a pencil and trying to move it with your mind just to see if you could. Imagine if that actually happened. How would you feel? That is exactly how Mage felt. So he picked up his wand again and he said, "Returnio!" The grass didn't turn back. He thought this was very strange. He went and found something a little bigger. He found a stone about an inch around, regular quartz rock, and "Disappeario!" he said at it. The beam of light went and it disappeared. He started jumping up and down. up and down. This is awesome, 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 this is awesome. Well, he went around the park for the next several minutes, probably, or more than several, probably like a half hour. And he was making things of various and escalating sizes disappear. He went up to a larger stone, then a big stick. Then he found a dead branch like this big hanging off of a tree, probably 4 feet long. He made that disappear. And then, much to his dismay, he saw a stray dog running around, and he knew he shouldn't do it, but he found the wand almost moving by its own, and he said, "Disappeario" on the dog. And then he went to a car. Now, this was an old car. He had seen it sitting by the street on the park for many months. He suspected it was abandoned, broken, perhaps not even working, and so he did "Disappeario" on the car, and surprisingly it worked. Now, you would think a boy as smart as Mage, because he was very smart, borderline genius if you must know, you would think a boy of his stature, his intellect, his motivation, and his experience with magic would have decided to question, when I make things disappear, where do they go? But he didn't. After the car, he made a couple bicycles disappear. He knew he should have felt bad about this, but he was so obsessed with the magic, he made people's bicycles disappear, and they were none too happy when they found their bicycles missing. Fortunately, they had bicycle insurance from the Bicycle Destruction Foundation, and they were able to get new bicycles from Daddy Ray Giant Peck's bicycle company, the best bicycles you could ever find. He went home and started walking home, and he heard the sound of a police siren, and then he heard the sound of a fire truck siren, and then he heard an ambulance siren, and they peeled around the corner and tore onto his street. The siren sounded for a moment, and then they stopped. Oh no, he thought, I hope something isn't wrong with any of my neighbors. And then the dark thought and worry settled in on him. I hope something isn't wrong with my father. So he started running as quick as he could, tucking his magic wand in his back pocket. When he got to his cul-de-sac, where their house was, his worst fears were confirmed. The ambulance, the fire truck, and the police car were all in front of his house. And he saw them and he worried that something terrible had happened to his father. But then he looked up at the house and he said, is this why they're here? For the car that he had made disappeared. For the car that he had made disappear smashed into the roof of their house, hanging halfway in and halfway out. His father was standing outside with the policeman, fireman, and ambulance looking at him. Phew, he was okay. He heard his father saying, I don't know how it got there. I was just sitting in my house working, and suddenly I heard a giant bang, and I came in, and there was wood and plaster and drywall falling from the ceiling, and I heard my house shaking and creaking, and there was the car, and I rushed outside and called you. And the police officer looked at it and said, Sir, we've never seen anything like this. The fireman said, how could something even lift a car up that high? Could it have fallen off of a cargo plane? Could it have somehow been a car that was in orbit? The ambulance worker just shook her head. Mage looked at his father, looked at the policeman, and said, is it safe to go inside? And they said, no, son, we're gonna have to have a structural engineer come and look and make sure the house is safe. Well, Mage was very fearful for what he might find, so he ran along the back of his house, opened the door, and went inside. It seemed to be stable enough, for the car was only above the living room. But when he opened the door, he saw everything that he had made disappear. The sticks, the rocks, the bicycles, even the dog. He opened the door so the dog could run outside, and the dog tore off, and Mage reasoned that it probably could find its way home. This concerned him very, very much. But there was one thing that concerned him even more. Sitting on his couch, a black, very long couch made of leather, was a green creature that he could best describe as a gremlin. It was about 2 feet high and had hairless green skin all over its very humanoid body. It had a head that was disproportionately large to its body, and on that head rested 2 glowing red eyes. It smiled at him with a mouth filled with razor-sharp fangs, and when it saw him flinch, it laughed. And for some reason, Mage didn't back out of the room. He just stood and stared at the creature. And finally, the creature spoke in a high-pitched voice that was also somehow raspy and deep. Well, if it isn't the little wizard, it said, we've brought your things back to you. And Mage said, what do you mean? brought your things back. Well, you have the wand. Don't you know what you're doing? Don't you know where you're sending these things? Oh, who put you up to this? Was it that evil wizard? Was it Shabbatinus? And Mage looked at the creature, the gremlin, and said, my name is Mage. I don't know who you're talking about. Who are you? And the gremlin looked at him and said, my name is Pericles, and I come here because you're dumping your trash into our dimension again, and we won't stand for it. The next time this happens, we will come here, and we will take our punishment out on you and your father and everyone around you. Leave us alone! And the creature snapped and disappeared. Mage sat down for a moment, trying to think about what was going on, and then his father interrupted him, coming around the back saying, Mage, it's not safe in the house! His father took him to a hotel, which luckily enough it was a hotel with a pool, and he was able to distract himself by swimming for a while and having great fun. However, he couldn't get out of the back of his mind what the creature had said, and he couldn't help but feeling fooled. Was this wizard who he'd bought the wand from somehow an enemy of this gremlin creature? Was this gremlin creature from this world or another world? And how was him saying Disappeario or Disappeariosa or the variations he had tried, how was that sending items into this gremlin creature? Well, he told his father what had happened, and his father said, are you kidding me? Come on, Mage, don't make jokes. Things are hard enough already. But Mage said to his father, Father, think about it. There's a car on our roof. Our house was filled with bicycles and rocks and sticks and bugs and a random dog. Come up to the room, I'll show you. And so Mage went to the room with his father and cast Disappeariosa on the blanket of the bed, and it disappeared. Well, his father sat there, mouth agape, going, that's actually a magic wand. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. His father was kind of freaking out. And Mage said, I know, right? I can't believe it. And before they could say anything else, out of thin air appeared 3 of the green gremlins. He recognized the one with red eyes, and he saw 2 others, one with blue and one with green eyes. They grabbed his father, mumbled some sort of gibberish, which must have been a spell, and then disappeared into thin air. No! Mage yelled. Oh no, he realized that they had kidnapped his father because he had accidentally sent another item into their realm or their base or their home, their dimension, whatever it was. Oh God, how am I gonna get him back? How am I gonna get him back? He thought to himself. Fortunately, his father's phone had gotten left behind. He picked up his phone and called in Uber. For those of you who don't know, it's like a taxi. And he had that taxi take him back to the magic shop. When he went inside, the strange man was there, and he saw Mage. And he said, what brings you here? And Mage took out his wand and said, this wand, there's gremlins, there's creatures attacking us, and they've kidnapped my father. What do I do? The man just looked at him, stroking his wispy white beard, his cloudy, sightless eyes peering into Mage's soul, seemingly. And he merely said, only the one who holds the wand can decide that. I cannot help you. You are its protector now. And he snapped his finger, and there was a puff of smoke, and when the smoke dissipated, the proprietor of the magic shop was gone. Mage realized that person was a wizard too. So he walked around the shop looking for anything that could help him. When he couldn't think of anything, he walked outside to the town square and paced around. He even took $5 and went and had a delicious Subway. Subway, the #1 restaurant company in the world. After he had his sandwich, it occurred to him like a flash of insight. He just had to cast Disappeario on himself. He got ready. He didn't know what he was gonna find. Disappeario he cast. And he felt himself going into a strange, wobbly state, almost as if he were swaying to music while looking at himself in one of those mirrors that distorts your shape. His vision wobbled. There were strange popping and tingling sounds that almost sounded like bells. And then he felt a moment of black. And then he appeared in what was a stone room. There were giant bricks of stone all around him. Some of them had moss on them, some had cracks, some looked rather new. In the distance, he could hear dripping, he could hear laughing, and he could hear the far-off mumbling sound of his father. And so he walked down stone hallways lined with torches that seemed to be magical because they were lighting up in different colors, some purple, some blue, some green. Maybe it wasn't magic, maybe it was just chemistry. Mage didn't know. So he walked down until he peeked around a corner and he could hear his father talking. I swear, we didn't mean to do it. We got this wand from a magic shop. And you could hear the gremlin with the red eyes talking. Yeah, magic shop? What magic shop? Who? Who sold it to you? And his father said, I don't know. It's at 139 Elm Street. And the gremlins snapped their fingers, or he heard a snapping sound, and then he heard poof. Mage ran to his father and said, Father, Father, I am here. And his father said, Mage, hide. These creatures are insane. They've been zapping me with shock wands. They've been pulling on my hair. They've been poking me with needles. I think they're gonna harm me if I don't get out of here. And so Mage looked at what was holding his father down. It appeared that he had been shackled to the wall with iron chains. Disappeario, disappeario, disapperio, disapperio, he cast on all the chains. And down the hallway, he could hear the chains clanking into the ground. And his father went, I'm free. Yes, I'm free. So he and his father ran down the hallway to the room where Mage had appeared in, and he tried to cast spells. Reappeario, disappeario. Nothing was happening. It appeared that this wand only offered him a one-way ticket. They ran down the hallway and tried to find another room. They found a staircase that went upwards, sprinted up the stairs as fast as they could, and they came out of a trap door into a forest. This looked like a regular forest that you might find on Earth, except for one thing. There were fairies with purple wings flittering about. There were butterflies that were glowing. Up in the sky, there was a bird that was singing a song about a fair maiden. Mage and his father tried to talk to these creatures, but they did not seem to be able to hear him. But they did notice that there was a path that seemed to have been worn over time through the grass and through the woods. It was just a little bit of dirt where the grass had been worn thin. They followed it through the woods. They followed it over a short bridge that covered a beautiful stream of water that was way too blue to be from Earth. They went through a village that was populated by humans that were only 3 feet tall. The humans appeared to also, these creatures, dwarves, gnomes, little people, whatever they might be, seemed to also ignore Mage and his father. And they thought, we don't belong here. This is really strange. But their escape was not long-lived, for in front of them appeared the 3 gremlins, including the one with the red eyes. And the old mage, or proprietor of the shop, whatever he was, in his white robe with his white wispy beard and his white clouded eyes. I'm sorry, my boy, he said. I couldn't stop them. And the gremlin with the red eyes looked at Mage. I'm going to give you 2 choices, you see. This one here seems to think you have the gift. So, you can duel me in a wand battle, and if you win, you and your father can go home. But should you fail to win, you shall be locked in the dungeon until you are old and gray. And then we will send you off to start your own magic shop. And you can sell wands that will bring people like you to us. And eventually, we will have an army of slaves and servants to do our bidding. Mage didn't like the sound of either of those options, and he looked at his father. And his father said, this world doesn't make sense. I don't know how to get out. Do you think you can do it? Mage closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and he thought to himself, yes, I can do it. He didn't know why he said that or why he felt that way, but he felt it was true. It wasn't with some false sense of confidence and bravado he spoke. It was with an inner knowing that he was up to the task. And so he pulled his wand from his back pocket, and he said, where do we do this? And the creature with the red eyes said, right here, make room. And he stomped his foot down. And suddenly, the other green gremlin creatures, the shopkeeper and his father, were all outside of a glowing circle about 10 feet wide. At the end of that glowing circle, walls rose up that were made of some sort of energy. His father was pounding on the wall trying to get in, but he couldn't. Now it's just you and me, boy, said the red-eyed gremlin. And just like that, the battle started. The red-eyed gremlin cast a fireball at Mage, which he dived out of the way just in time. Another fireball blasted past him and singed his foot. It was hot. This was real fire. This was serious. Another fireball was coming right at him. He didn't have time to dodge. He raised his wand and the fireball dissipated on a glowing white shield that flared into existence and then disappeared the moment the fireball was gone. Oh, very good. I see you found this shield. This will be fun. The gremlin started casting fireballs after fireball after fireball. He was starting to get more confident. This was getting easier. And instead of getting tired, he was feeling more energized. As he blocked a fireball, he decided to try something new. And the words just came to him. Light anon! And out from his wand shot a beam of light that was as bright as the sun, about maybe 6 inches across, and it smacked the goblin right in the chest. And he could see the goblin's skin kind of smoking and burning, and it fell down on the ground. Make it stop! Make it stop! It shrieked. Mage walked over and said, only if you surrender. And the creature said, I surrender! I surrender! And Mage cast Dispellio. And the goblin's chest dissipated. Well, the goblin got down on his hands and knees in front of him and said, command me, my lord. And Mage said, make this force field go away. The force field went away. Mage said, stay in this world and never hurt another human being. And the goblin ducked down and said, never hurt another human being. Okay, okay. Mage said, never come to our world and leave my father and I alone. And the creature said, your wish is my command. And Mage said, now send us back. And the goblin cast a spell. He didn't understand the words. It sounded like something like balabali bilubalam balangongjing. And then he found himself back in his house. But his house was fixed. The car was gone, the bicycle was gone, everything was gone. And his father looked at Mage and said, are you a wizard? And Mage said, it seems that way. I don't understand. They decided that they were just gonna go have some dinner and try to figure things out. They talked about it, and they realized that they were gonna have to find a teacher for Mage, or somebody else who knew more about this. Because even though that goblin had promised it wouldn't come back, Mage did not trust that creature. Because how could it? It seemed evil and nefarious, and Mage knew it would find a way out of its promise. But that's a story for another day. This is the story of Mage and the Goblin. Alden, I love you more than anything in the world. My heart is with you. I hope you have the sweetest dreams. You are my best friend, and you are super cool. And I'll see you very soon. I love you. Good night.